So I try to encourage people all the time that, look, this life is important, yes. There's some things we need to do to keep body and soul together. But don't invest too much on what will pass away in time. But invest in you who will outlive this body.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I have an amazing guest today. He is a practitioner and a monk of Hare Krishna, or isn't it Krishna consciousness? In any case, I've just been very much looking forward to our conversation. What an incredible being. I want to welcome to the podcast today, Savya the Monk. How are you, my dear friend?
I'm well. I'm glad to be here and to share the space with all your viewers.
Yes.
I hope our conversation can add some value to
Oh
their
my,
lives.
absolutely. I would love you to just share a little bit about yourself for the audience, bringing you to this point.
Yes, I'm raised in the country of Swaziland. I'm South African citizen. I came across, you could say, wisdoms on in my youth through the music of Bob Marley and just sort of searching who was running the world and who was dictating how we should move in the world. So that type of inquiry led me to feel that I don't want to be part of the rat race. And I wanted to understand how I'll be happy because I was seeing those before me, they're doing everything the culture says they should do to be happy. But I still see parents, relatives, just people in general, they're not happy and free. And I was sure there must be some people who have some wisdom some way to give us an alternate version of life. And I remember in 99, one really radical situation happened was that this movie, The Matrix, came out. I was already someone who was following someone like David Icke, who was speaking about how we're becoming left brain prisoners, talking about things like Illuminati. But still, it wasn't enough. I was involved with Black consciousness with our own movement out here. And when I watched The Matrix, then I felt that, okay, the problem is like for everyone. It's not just a politically based thing only, or religion is limiting us. It seems the whole universe or the world we live in is a different nature than where I should be. So fast forward, I'm in college, university, after all types of wisdoms that just sort of came their way on their own to me. I met a poster on campus advertising Bhakti Yoga. So naturally, because we're searching for clues to a life of freedom and joy, we went there. And we saw the monks all dressed in robes, a whole cosmopolitan group. We thought these brothers, they must know something that all of us don't know. Otherwise, why the gear? And it turned out that we were hosting this program. So I think with them, I found like a broad-based knowledge, this Vedic knowledge. I found that it already incorporated all the things I'd come across, and it was giving me some process that I could follow daily. So my heart kind of settled there. I thought, okay, let me enter the laboratory and try to get my consciousness upgraded, and then hopefully I could do this as a service to share what I find with others. 2002, I joined the monastery in Pretoria, South Africa.
Wow.
This was I was studying IT at the time at the college. I thought, no, I don't know who made all these mathematics equations that I had to solve as part of my course. Let me solve my actual spiritual problems. I felt. Let me join the monster.
Wow, it's such a it's really a testament to that infusion of belief system, a path of awareness. I briefly remember being exposed to Hare Krishna movement in the 70s in Australia, and so it's a way of life like anything. As you know, I'm a Taoist priest. I would say I follow a monastic path of my own creation, but it varies from belief system to belief system, and then taking that belief system to a knowing, which is so evident just in your frequency and your presence, that there's something going on here that is beyond something that we perceive as material. So you talk more about uh, it's like a method, right? You need a path, a cultivational practice. Do you find that the Hare Krishna methods? Well, clearly you've been in the monastery for 20 years, over 22 years. Does that make you raise the consciousness? Is it through the energetics? Is it through a system of just opening your mind? What would you attribute to the raise of your frequency?
It's a combination of strengthening, I would say, sharpening the head by giving logical philosophy knowledge. So you get to understand your environment. What is this world we're in? What is material nature? Also understanding the tools with which you're working with, the body, the mind, intellect, how the consciousness is linked with the physical body, and learning what are those blocks of consciousness not blossoming to its blissful state. And then on the other side, then there's a systematic process of purifying the mind, the senses from their attachments, and awakening the dormant spiritual consciousness of the individual being. So diet plays a role. What you see, hear, smell, meaning your environment every day. And then it also includes connection with deity. Who are the guardians? Who are the self-realized masters, the saintly persons that can help us along, that we could take inspiration from, and also revealing source. How can we understand the origin of all, the cause of all causes, and our relationship with that source? So then it gives you a complete package. How do I deal with my body mind complex? How do I connect to the reservoir of joy and with a clear set of knowledge about how things function? So it's a faith and philosophy. So it's not just sentiment, it's not also just speculation, but it's a combination of some things you can perceive directly with your senses and verify, but some things are beyond the verification of the senses, and they can be verified by experience spiritually. So in that way, you could say applied spiritual technology. That as you apply what's been given there, you can verify, okay, this actually does translate to that. Then your faith to pursue the path increases in that same way. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've been teaching people Taoist alchemy probably over 30 years. The highest level of ascension for a Taoist is direct source channeling. So we go through 9 stages of revealing. First, it's the physical body, the energetic body, the spiritual body. Then you go through the earth body, the sun body, the moon body, and finally the oneness body, the ultimate body, and then being all that is. And this 9-stage frequency upgrade comes with the alchemical process. So you go inside and you start playing with the crystalline sources that you have that are integrated in the architecture of the alchemical process, and start merging, the sun with the earth, with the moon, creating this infrastructure that you can tap into this electromagnetic spectrum that is what we call the material world. This is a polarizing sort of state, this dualistic version of reality that we're supposedly in is nothing more than a distraction. It's like deciphering how you get there to realize that for a Taoist, it's the present moment. This is how we access. But to substantiate, I really appreciate what you're speaking of, because we have a very intimate relationship with our immortal teachers. I have over 171 of them that I channel. I channeled my teacher Lao Tzu over 30 years ago, and I'm in deep relationship with him on a second by second basis. This is how I obtain what you would call the source, right? And I really appreciate you referring back to the ritual of your relationship with your deities, the masters that you speak of, all the access to that information, because people are losing sight of the foundational access that the seeker, we call them the Taoist seeker, will be able to obtain that, right? So it's like all that is lost. There's this onslaught of people talking about, conscious agency and watering down the relationship that you have with yourself, and what we call the return, which is the return to your knowing that you are now. And we call that Wu-Ji, which is what we call the Tao, the mother, the primordial mother. And so when you access that, that's like the center point. So everything is attributed to this respiration. Everything is a bellows. Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. And that center point is where you obtain that realization. And of course, the just from everything you speak of, I'm picking up what you're putting down. It's so very fundamentally important to validate what it is that you're experiencing. So it's not a transitory psychotic glimpse, that you can sustain some type of verifiable self-realized moment now. Do you find this is a similar path that you walk on with your own cultivation?
Yes, yes, I'm appreciating actually this conversation, because I would say it's probably my first ever sitting down with a Taoist person or master or follower like that. And I'm actually appreciating that the subject matter is really quite similar. You find that the language with which it's expressed and how the processes are broken down in each path is what creates the uniqueness of each path. That it's a deeply personal approach for each individual, that once you take on a path, then you definitely have to connect with the sciences, the masters, the teachers, and immerse yourself in imbibing the way of accessing knowledge that school is giving. And I would say that is lacking these days, in that there is maybe a lot of information on the surface about different traditions and paths, and people can understand and speak the different buzzwords. But the dedication of self into following a path and actually becoming yourself the template upon which you try to verify and experience what is being offered by these paths is less and less. So just the unfolding that you were speaking of, that it's systematized like that, is you can understand that there is a place we're at now in terms of conditioned life, but we're trying to return to a higher state, or a state which is the more natural, is now covered, by our conditioned nature, our experience with the external world. And yeah, I'm encouraged always when I converse with persons who are themselves immersed, because there's a knowing that they speak from, because they themselves are the experiment, and they're the experiencer of these technologies that they are experimenting with in spiritual evolution. So yes, we speak of the same substance. We are speaking of with different maybe jargon from the different traditions, but anyone who's got an ear can understand that we are trying to access that which is authentically our highest self.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting path, because when people come across me, I'm ordained in two lineages of Taoism. One a 66 generation holder, another one 126 generation holder. So I'm a priest, but I'm more within that. Like you are a monk, comes all these other trappings that people get so excited about these days: mediumship, clairvoyance, channeling. All these types of things are very tangible when you get into a path. Like the charge that you and I are getting right now, that is expanding our very feeling, our very knowing that this is true, comes right back to that simplicity, right? You get that chill, that charge, the oscillating effect that you and I are experiencing within this experience. And that is, it exceeds all this. All this stuff doesn't mean much. Right. Because you can experience it and go, holy moly, I know whatever they're saying. I don't have to read into it. I don't have to Google it. I can feel it, and I know it to be true. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say that yes. I tell a little story. So after that transplanted, you would say, this monotheistic, polymorphic monotheism called Hare Krishna, or Krishna consciousness, into the West. His name is Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. So he asked his student that, he said, so how do you know that Krishna exists? So Krishna addresses deity as all attractive. Krishna means all attractive. How do you know that this is true? I could have just given you a whole nice story. And so how do you know this is factual? So different students were saying, no, because you say so, Master. I said, nah. No, because the scriptures, they describe this so much exhaustively about Krishna. I said, well, that's something, but so different people were saying different things. And then just one young lady, students, he said, because I can feel Krishna, I can experience Krishna. That is why I believe this is true. He said, yes, it's not just armchair philosophy, spiritual life. It's not just something for the head, intellectual gymnastics. You've got some cool knowledge, but it has to be experienced. So direct perception by one's own realization, one's own experience. So that is needed, that we offer these practices, this knowledge, I'm sure as you do, people, so that when to invite them closer, let them experience something on their own, and that experience speak to them. This is what they feel they want to pursue more of. So it's a tangible thing, spirituality. It's not just you're free to do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, and this is spirituality, because it's just, you know, everything goes.
I love that, brother. I love that. You know, this is the thing. This is why I always tell people, whatever you gravitate to, a scripture, a belief system, this is so nourishing for the soul because you're on your center point of your path. You know, whatever, if you sit and you listen, whatever attracted you to Hare Krishna 20 odd years ago, you gravitated to it. It resonated inside of you. You knew this was where you have to be, and it expands you every day. Like, just as we speak, the oscillating effect that it's having on both of us right now is a beautiful thing. You feel the wave of that somatic experience because we are really just moving in the same consciousness. We're just individual lenses of this consciousness. That's why we can embody the experiential moment, and it's so powerful. And that's what I love about Taoism, is that alchemical process. So being able to really shape and mold this substance so that you can validate it. So it's not a fleeting potential left brain psychotic moment. You are being able to self-realize, self-validate. The validation is most important. So, you know, how you transmute your relationship as you start to resonate higher. I always tell people, you create that realization within this electromagnetic spectrum. So understanding that everything has created and it has this energetic potential, everything is energy, then you look at it and go, okay, well, that energy has a vibration. That vibration has a frequency. That frequency, if met with resonance, you can maintain it. This is how yourself and myself we continually cultivate our relationship with the divine, and that divinity transmits through our physical body as the tuning fork. And you can literally walk through into a room and literally change the energy instantly, because that resonance is emitting a whole different raising of other people's awareness, their potential, which in of itself, as the energetic potential is stored and basically transmuted within a physical body, the whole cultivation or activation of your energetic potential, I assume you would call these energy centers chakras. Within Taoism, we call them dantians. These are all things that you start to cultivate and balance. And this regular flow, what we call the flow within Taoism, we call it WuSA, effortless action, effortless effort. When you're able to do that, all of a sudden you've got a resonance that just is autonomous. You don't even have to think about it. That is your default. That is your servitude, your selflessness, that you're on this path. And from that, your gift is your offering. From that, you share with others and you receive. It's a cycling, as we call it, bellows, contracting and expanding at all times. And I always remind people, this is happening all the time. It will never stop. You're all things and nothing at the same time. And people are like, what? What does that even mean? And then you start to take a moment. Man is not like that. This physical flesh does not run this way. So you need to start attuning yourself. And from an alchemical process within Taoism, you saturate the 50 trillion cells, take mastery and maestro over that, so you can attune the flesh to lengthen your journey within this conscious creative moment that is only a fleeting moment. 100 years, 120 years, 150 years. Within Taoism, we speak on immortality into the thousands of years. And I'm sure within a Hare Krishna path, there are many factors that make that realized for yourself. But you nourish it, as you said, from a physical perspective, from a mental perspective, from an emotional perspective. Ultimately, that raises the spiritual stuff too. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I wanted to share that what you're saying about self-validation is true. And even more than that, we find that people, they validate that. Like, you are sometimes not aware of your own influence on others. And many times if people just say, I feel you're so different, I feel so safe around you. I can feel that you're really living in another dimension. And there I am just feeling like I'm just like a lowly, aspirant of higher consciousness. I don't think there's any particular specialty about me, but you start to learn to allow people to express how you are actually impacting their lives without doing much. You've just entered a space, but because of the cultivation and the association with the higher spiritual nature or vibration in one's practice, naturally, even the physical or the energy centers are becoming illuminated, and you are like emitting a different vibration that people can tangibly pick up. So in one sense, also, you get validated externally without intending by others who experience the frequency of spirituality that one is. And therefore, it's a point of encouragement to anyone who wants to walk the path of their spiritual growth. Go in, really take it up. And even though people will say, oh, now it's a difficult time, everything is on downward spiral. We call it, Kali Yuga, the age of quiet and hypocrisy. But even though you may experience that times are dark and mankind is maybe lost to their lower nature, still, even if there's a blackout in the city, if you have your flashlight, you can still bring some light to the situation. So we are all sort of little flashlights, and if we light up our own flashlights, then soon and very soon that darkness is slowly being overcome. So an encouragement to here's our conversation, that take the steps towards an enlightened lifestyle, living, and cultivation. Here's a whole platform. You have a Taoist transcendentalist. He's here sharing his time and space and inspire and take up something. Here I am, I'm speaking from the Hare Krishna perspective. Let it not just be a spectator sport, or we want to label this and that, but let's get into making the experiments. Because what has been happening, a whole experiment has been conducted on us, the experiment of, a consumer culture, an externally facing culture where we want to find happiness for the spiritual through excessive engagement with the material. So, and that experiment is stopping right before our eyes. We see that no matter how much people are making headway materially, they seem to be losing something in the way of happiness, satisfaction, contentment, connection. So it's time for people to start going within and going actually transcendental, looking for these spiritual technologies. Yeah, and I see that there's more and more people willing to do these types of explorations now. And so that gives me optimism. And that we have more and more platforms where even on the internet, someone can bump into such conversations. It's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's that exploration and validation that makes it real. I mean, I always remind people your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. And absolute truth is for you to find your absolute truth. But if someone tells you this is the absolute truth to all things, about face and run in the other direction. You have to realize everyone has their own perspective. For me, I always tell people the student is the teacher is the student. At no time you will ever lose a new realization of an expansion of your own spiritual consciousness when you accept this. But, you know, from one of my teachers, the Jade Emperor, he makes it very clear. When you accept you know nothing, you know everything.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
It's thinking of, there's this analogy also of the tree that has many fruits. It tends to hang very low because it really has some substance to it. So one possesses actual knowledge tends to have this disposition of humility. They don't think that, oh, I know so much. Yeah. The more they know, the more they realize how much they don't know, because we're dealing with an inexhaustible absolute truth. It's ever increasing. Just as you turn one corner, there's so many more beautiful horizons to explore. That is, yeah, it's exciting. The rabbit hole doesn't end. I was considering.
No, go ahead, my friend.
No, I was just considering that the point that you were making about when you think you know, then check yourself. Check yourself, because there's no end to it. It's almost like holding on to the moment. As soon as you think this is the moment, it's already moving. Time is always flowing. So in one sense, staying in the present is being in your future, because whatever it is that you're involved with now is moving you to a next phase. And unless and until people understand that our meditations on things that are temporary alone will create necessarily this anxiety, this fear, because temporary means it won't be with you for long. It's unstable, it's always changing. But something which is eternal, even though it may change its presentation, but it's ever present, and it's always expanding your awareness. So I try to encourage people all the time that, look, this life is important, yes. There's some things we need to do to keep body and soul together. But don't invest too much on what will pass away in time. But invest in you, who will outlive this body.
That is beautiful, my friend, because it really is. It's you have to have that realization from lack of. People possess or pursue the material world because they're in lack of. I always ask the first question I ask someone when they come seeking for a Taoist path and insight, using our techniques, using our mastery. I always ask someone, this is the first question. How do you feel at the end of your day? Well, exhausted. Well, this is the first telling sign of the seeker that you need to now adjust yourself, because I talk about this identity that you look back at you in the mirror as another facet of what we call perfection, the diamond. And it will forever change, but it's also not something that you have to be completely controlled by. You can access your divinity and still have your personality without having to erase it. And what happens, for example, on your path, the monastic path, what's going on for the audience is the longer you hold that path, whatever it is, your personality will adjust to the frequency of your divine self. And so you will be that reflection. You will not have to think. If you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're feeling, you're all knowing. It's the experience that makes it true. And then all of a sudden, your servitude, the selflessness that is the true nature of your default, becomes the very rippling effect, that mirroring effect that we speak of. You had mentioned technologies, and perhaps you mentioned metaphysics a little bit. There is this aspect of looking at within a Taoist model, we use a cultivational practice, one specifically, where it's observing the death of a star and the rising of specific spirits that reside within your core that are protecting your organs, the 5 elements, the heart, the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, the spleen. These are all incredibly primordial energies that protect the seeker. And so when you witness that, the rise of the red phoenix is the heart, and you reveal what they call black hole energy, which is the void. And people go, that's weird. Well, that's the primordial mother from a Taoist perspective. From the void comes light. And this is this oscillating effect that takes place within this spectrum. And then you have to now isolate that. We don't look at things as good and bad, where there's yin and yang. That's as simple as that. So what is the representation of that? And some people tend to talk about the darkness, and it can be your path, that the darkness may represent itself in a certain way within your path in this journey, in this life. But some people talk about it as shadow work. Some people talk about it as evil. Some people, that's fine. That's how you're experiencing it. And you need to find the very mastery and tools to help you understand what it is you're experiencing. I find that this is, part of a Taoist priest. I have many ancient rituals that I teach people that have been handed down from generation to generation for literally thousands of years, as is all the practices that you cultivate and share with people. And this is the rich nature of the relationship from the experiencer and their relationship with the divine source. For example, the Tao. You have this intimate relationship. It's your self-realization. It's more like a Gnostic path. I don't know whether you've ever heard of Gnosticism, but it's like you are just realizing it for yourself. It's not for someone else to tell you what it is, but you must have validation. Just sort of sitting in the corner, as you said, the experiences, the feeling, the knowing. You cannot sit in the corner and have someone else give you messaging, and you're using what they call blind faith, and you'll still be off center. You'll still be misaligned. You won't be aligned with your divine self until it enters and is realized for you. And what we call the cloth of perfection, the mother, is the very fabric of this reality. That once you realize that you are that present moment, you can access this divinity at all times. Something that perhaps maybe you, my dear friend, was doing 20, 30 years ago as a practice of meditation is literally you breathing now. You don't have to think about it. You're just experiencing and raising that frequency to create this realization that it's now. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it's like if I'm selling a cake and I speak about it the whole day, this cake is so tasty, creamy, so sweet. It's helpful if someone is looking for cake, but until they take cake, they put it in their own mouth and chew it, and then only can they actually verify that it is what we're saying it is. So, in one sense, that the messaging or the repetition of traditional wisdoms or ancient wisdoms in this case has value to the point that whoever hears them can take them on board, apply them to verify them for themselves. Yes. I was also considering, you touched on relation and a unique aspect that the path of bhakti or Krishna consciousness, so this bhakti term means love and devotion, in that it is looking at the aspect of our being that is always looking to love and be loved. And therefore, within divinity, this path is revealing the sweet, attractive features of divinity. It then goes beyond his energetic presence in all things, where he can be realized as sustaining all that lives, is all accommodating. Then it takes us to all permeating. He's there in everything. He's also almost on board with us as a friend, as a witness, as a guide. But then it also reveals divinity in the personal feature. Just as we are talking and you are seeing us here, you can have a face to face, because the complete absolute truth means just that. There's nothing lacking. So whatever it is that we are attracted to, however we are trying to approach, the absolute truth is so liberal and ready to supply us with a matching facet so that we are drawn closer. And so those who are looking for a feeling of love and particularly to devote to a beloved, then you are supplied with a plethora of incarnations of that same supreme being, just to match the particular flavor of your longing. So I love the fact that there is no death in ways to approach. It's actually, we don't have no excuse to feel unconnected. It can only be just a matter of we are looking away and therefore dealing with the shadow instead of turning our faces and looking at the substance. And so, in one sense, today's culture is full of this messaging where they say there's no need of a teacher, nobody can help you with your own spirituality. I say half the message, in that for everything in life, we do take help from others. We are sort of interdependent. So even just for a degree in engineering, you have to crack your head for so many years and listen to so many professors and teachers to become qualified in that field. So something is quite subtle as understanding the essence of our being and understanding the absolute truth, whether it's all-pervading feature or localized feature or personal feature, that will take much more attention and subtle understanding and tuning of ourselves to access that reality, because it is state specific. We cannot just gate crash the transcendental or the spiritual. We have to, in one way, slowly become spiritualized. And like we'll say, you want to know Krishna, you have to allow yourself to be Krishnized. So in that sense, the value of following closely someone who's on a path and is applying themselves sincerely and is actually uh, manifesting the matching results of what's being promised there, the matching consciousness, can never be understated. There's a need for guidance and inspiration from persons who are living the tradition. And then there's the other part of it is that you have yourself can understand what it is you are getting. And so, yeah, in that sense, the teacher, keep in mind that you have to find some teacher and teachers. And then keep in mind also that then you will have to apply teaching for it to make sense and value to you.
Yeah, it's like the first time it happens is it's profound. That's why I love playing with energetic potential, because you can show people things that they might perceive as supernatural, paranormal, things that are out of the mundane, 24/7 human materialism, and you're now transmuting something that would be normally unobtainable out of something out of a movie, something weird, something crazy, reading people's energetic potential. Aura readings are always a great little icebreaker, because, you start reading information about them that they've never shared with you and you've only known them 3 seconds, and they go, wow, how is that possible? Of course, anything is possible. The source information is in front of us. You are me, I am you. When you get away from the idea that you think you have to separate and protect yourself, this is the very unraveling of the seeker from a Taoist perspective, is when they perceive that their emotions control them and they don't control their emotions. This is one of the first things that you understand for a foundation, that you must be able to regulate that energetic potential. Then you don't get distracted by your path, by your cultivation, by your seeking. And that's the first distraction, is the idea that these emotions are, I didn't get a cookie when I was 5, and now I'm all traumatized and in pain and suffering. This is an aspect of it. I understand this, but most people just stay there. They want that human being experience. They want the suffering. They don't want to expand more. They sort of sit there and they go, oh, I'd rather just sit here and talk about how much pain I'm in. Have you experienced this yourself?
I would say, yes, I think it's a cop-out mechanism that we have, where we like to disqualify ourselves so that we avoid taking the steps into the unknown. We want to stay in the comfort zone, even though we are seeing that it's been traumatic for us and others. But when we are being inspired to rise beyond the conditions, then no, I have to go deeper into my traumatic presence or past. I would say, if there would be value for that, and there is to recognize how those patterns of living and experiences did not serve us. And then it should inspire us that now let us move forward in a different way. Let us take up a new way of being, so that we don't replicate the same experiences. But it's nice to be the victim and sort of get the ear of the therapist for many hours, or get your friends feeling sorry for you for what you've been through. Not to, play down what people have been through, but as how people always say, oh, life is about learning, it's about lessons. I tend to ask, so what have you learned? And then if there's something you've learned, then there's something must change. You should be willing to do something else, to learn something else. But it can be yeah, a cycle where people just don't want to be inspired to raise themselves up. They, I hear people will say to me, "Oh, now that's too deep. Now you know you're going too deep," and you know they want you to stay on the surface. And I say it's an ocean of material sufferings, and on this surface here, you only catch sardines. Now you go deeper into the ocean of truth and reality. Dive deeper into reality, and you'll find there are more gems as you go deeper. There's the limits that have been set for us artificially by society, or have been set by artificially by the conditioning of our minds, begin to fall away as we explore the soul, because the soul by nature is an eternal anti-material particle. It's not meant to be caged in by, you know, low vibration embodiment of, you know, the elements that make up this body. So when people get a chance to be moved and from those guards that they've put up against moving forward, in retrospect, everyone can say, "Oh yeah, I thought that I was taking a risk by changing my life." Then I see actually there was no risk. Actually, it was all gain, you know. And later on, you come just when you all risk and no concern about gain, uh, because you are now in contact with the essence of your being, and you are in contact with source. There's the ladies of a place called Vrindavan. This Vrindavan is said to be like the topmost planet of Krishna. Its opulence is like simplicity. So there, or Krishna is understood as the supreme source of everything. They don't deal with him there as God, all-knowing, all-powerful. He's just a village member, a friend. They like him because he's funny, he's a prankster, he steals, he plays games with his friends. So the topmost of Krishna's lovers or devoted ones are the young girls of that village. And for them, there is no boundary that can stop them from doing anything to please the beloved, because their essence is pleasing the beloved, is love. So their motivation is always the love vibration. And when there's love, there's no consideration of laws and rules, and so when we come out in our consciousness and we get exposed to dimensions of living where we are not confined conditions that are limiting. And so, you know, whomever you are, break free. Whoever hears this, break free from what you know, and don't hold on to past traumas and experiences. Take up the progressive path, explore the world of consciousness. You'll find it unendingly wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful what you're saying, because when we talk about everything being the symbiotic, contracting and expanding at all times, it's within the same substance. It's within the divinity that you're experiencing this. And so, if you're all things and nothing at the same time, as a Taoist, when you're at your lowest, you're actually at your highest. So it's like, is the glass half empty or half full? How are you perceiving your reality? How are you perceiving it? The more and more you invest in realizing that you're expanding, it will become more self-evident for you. It's like the old gravitating to a specific frequency And the more and more you embody that frequency, the more and more you become it. So then the selflessness, the servitude, the love, as you speak of, is us returning home to remembering that divinity and being at one with that, knowing that you are that. That's you. All is one, one is all. And then that becomes your expression of all things. And I think what's really important, and you mentioned this, was the practices and the cultivational practices that can validate this for yourself and that can realize. And, this is where I think you and I are speaking this to many people. People are losing sight of how important it is to create and nurture what I call the ritual of your relationship with the divine, the ritual that comes with the nourishment of accessing this knowing through your masters, through your teachers that reinforce that. And whether it comes in a physical form like yourself or myself, helping people guide them back to their return of who they are, they're being given that. It's all overlaying and self-realizing through that you become known. And so people just go, oh, well, I've experienced this and I feel energy. I don't need any of that. And I find personally doing this 30 years, that's the very, distraction that becomes like the albatross, around the ankle of the seeker, because they're stuck in one way, I know it all. I don't know. I'm good. And they can't continue to expand. They become reliant on many things, and they go to DMT and mushrooms and other psychedelics. And that's all fine. That's all fine. But I always find that I have them end up on my doorstep going, I had it once, but I can't repeat it. I got there. I was like, oh my goodness, I got there, but now it's gone. And so every time I want it, I have to go back to the mushrooms, the DMT, the the psychedelics, all that kind of stuff. And that can be problematic if you're not able to access that. And so I know you probably teach your students this. I teach people how to have DMT experiences permanently, where you're in that time, you're able to experience it all the time through yourself. What is that? Does that make sense?
Yes. I like that you're bringing that up. The experimenting is good in the beginning. You're looking, and so, but just that, oh, I tasted that is surface level. That taste is a hint of a permanent and ever growing experience, which you can walk into and embody. And so it is like a chink in the armor of the seeker, as you're saying, when they don't stop to say, oh, if I got such an experience here, imagine if I now pick up a steady practice, regulate myself and focus, and how much can I access? Because the intoxication, artificial. I remember when I also was starting like this, that was a hint. Like we started with marijuana. Most people tend to, and because it just kind of slows you down, and you start to see the world differently, and you think, why is everyone running around? You question things, but if you then think that's now the end of it, that now you become reliant on just altering artificial awareness and then thinking that's all that is, then it defeats, you would say, the superpower that was put in those chemicals to give you that experience, to sort of question your reality. But when I first started, we had a whole association. I mentioned Black consciousness. We were trying to fight remnants of colonial heritage in South Africa, and we're trying to, let's unite and raise our consciousness. So we so happened to invite a gentleman who was of the Rasta background. He had all the dreadlocks and everything, but clean looking, man. He worked at the Department of Health. So he came and he spoke to us. The topic was youth and drugs. And as he was speaking, he mentioned personalities like Lord Shiva. They're famous for, smoking ganja. But then he's a different category of being. For him, it's not like we. So people, instead of then following that, he also does some meditation. What's that meditation? They want to imitate that level of just the intoxicating part. But he said that we don't need to experience the intoxicated state through use of external inputs only. That the intoxicated state and that we like it is because it's a part of our actual nature. And the machine that we've been given, the human form, is designed, already equipped to access unending intoxicated states of enlightenment, of bliss, of just awe, of being charmed, or whatever it may be. And I thought, yes, I want to explore what this human machine, what is its true potential in terms of bringing me into a life where what I desire by way of joy and pleasure and connection and love can be realized. It must be that this can access it. So I was looking for you could say, a cleaner form, a more natural, one that doesn't take me up and then, down and I have to deal with the fuzz,
Yeah,
So
I mean, yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I've come across over my travels and training around the world, teaching people, training with others, I've come across 3 people in my lifetime that can do specifically some crazy things. And for me, physical healing, mental, emotional, spiritual healing is something that I love watching. I love observing, being an experiencer within that. Anything you can think of in your mind, any scenario, I've experienced it, I've seen it. You can come across anything. There's nothing I haven't seen in the last 30 years. But when you get to that and you validate that, if you're seeing physical flesh transmutate before your very eyes back to its original state, now you are going from a seeker to a knower. And this is a state of awareness that comes with this now moment where you're no place, you're no person, you're no thing, you're just now. And it cannot be from the identity of the self, personality-wise. It must be within that breath, that second, that picosecond. It's now. And so that cultivational practice becomes realized. So, 3 people, I've only met 3 people that I know to have had Kundalini awakenings, real Kundalini awakenings. 2 of them were masters that I met in the jungles of Indonesia, and they both levitate and do supernatural things. And then the other person is a student of mine, and I taught him how to levitate. Not my excitement, not my deal. Doesn't get to do that. These are, I think they call them. One of my yogic friends calls it a siddha, Sudha. There's some type of sorry.
CDs, perfections.
CDs. And, these are self-realized moments, but you can't just hold on to that, in my opinion. It's like you want to realize it. You go, wow, this is possible. I've aligned myself so much that I'm able to access this state of awareness, but then you continue. If it makes you whole, that's great. But if you sit there and that's your main focus, you will always be in deficiency. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
And so with the one guy from Indonesia, this guy would smoke. He was probably 100 years old. He would smoke 2 massive bags of dope every day, ganja, marijuana, whatever you call it. but he was not of this world. This is a state of awareness, you know. It's like if you fall, most people fall into their emotional content, and that is their very unraveling. That is self-evident within their physical bodies, and they see it. They go, it starts to diminish. As we put it in Taoism, we call this Jing. The physical body has a constitution we call Jing, which is the essence that you're given by your hereditary sort of disposition of lineage, of history that your DNA is made up of within this lifetime. But then that's your starting point. That's the whole point of cultivation. It's like you realize that. I always tell people, you always come into the world with a battery, and your battery is normally about 80% of its potential. You then realize that you can cultivate your practice, nourish this self-realized harmony within your ecosystem, being a macro of a micro, your universe within your universe. You are able to regulate that. And then so your battery goes up to 100%, from 100% to 1,000%, from 1,000% to 9,000%, which is our highest number. We always stay in these high numbers that we use within our own systems. But the whole point of it is, when you realize you're not tapping into your own reservoir, where the end of your day is as good as the beginning of your day, now you know you're still where you need to be. And most people will tap into their own life force. So if they're massage therapists, light workers, healers, spiritual people, judges, doctors, police officers, whatever, it doesn't matter. You will know when you're tapping into that. And when you can tap in and be the present moment as the primordial mother from a Taoist perspective, it's endless. You're abundant, timeless, endless, limitless, infinite. That access to that source energy never stops. What are your thoughts on that?
I keep getting drawn back to, I think, the crux of our discussion. You know, now you mentioned cultivation. That the possibilities of experience cannot really be fully articulated, but they are waiting for us to experience them. But there must be a cultivation, a concerted, consistent, focused cultivation. And so I think this is really pivotal for anyone who's a seeker to become a practitioner and to cultivate. Just as anyone wants to eat guavas or whatever, they may get some guava seeds, and you have to get some good land for that. You plant maybe first in a little small bottle, and you nurture it, you water it, you transplant it, you protect it against, you know, predators or pests and whatever it may be. Slowly but surely that grows, and sooner or later some flowering, some fruit may come, and that enjoying those guavas comes after this whole process of cultivating, protecting, sustaining, and it's not going to happen simply by understanding that guavas taste good, that you'll be able to taste those guavas. If you want in your own backyard, you have to have the confidence that by planting this, watering it like this, and the enthusiasm to follow that, I'll do the practices because I'm confident they will lead to the fruit. And patience. There's another quality which is lacking in modern man, because most of the technology is about touch of a button. So when it comes to things of substance, we want them so cheaply that it should, you know, I've come here, I've been doing this for like 6 days. How come I'm not experiencing?
Oh, my dear friend, I love you so much, brother, because this is so true. This is the very unraveling for many seekers is Oh, wow. My girlfriend went on the weekend and she channeled the Palladians. And now she has 100,000 followers on YouTube. Where's my enlightened moment? I need to know now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is.
So,
It's, yeah, I'll go ahead.
so in
I'm just,
essence, is that be encouraged that the these realizations, which are our birthright, are not going to be cheap. If you do get some initial experience, that is also arranged by divinity to inspire you to then strive to make that your ever present reality. But it's not just, otherwise, what happens then, the exploitation, even around spirituality, begins. That I will advertise some cheap results at X amount cost. You don't have to do so much in yourself, so much work. And so, because people want shortcuts, keep trying to buy these experiences. And then when they don't sustain, then they start to even lose that is actual, real, tangible experiences in proper cultivation. So it will not be cheap, but it's actually the platform where you are really living, because now you are dealing with your life. It is you who is approaching the more complete form of yourself. We are part and parcel of that absolute truth. And as we come closer, we experience more of our actual nature. So that is most exciting. People talk about you should be real. I like people who are real, who are authentic. So to be real, you have to recognize you're a spiritual being. You're not just this body and mind. It is an aspect of your existence in this current format, but it is not the be all and end all, because it is part of changing identity. But if you tap into soul, then you're uncovering actually your essence and experience yourself more and more unlimitedly. Hey, that's really a frontier you should look for. If you want to be a hero, you want to explore, then explore consciousness, explore the soul, and know that it's not going to be. Look at college education. Hundreds and thousands of dollars people owe, and they still may not get employment. It's not cheap financially. It's not cheap with your time. You had to go to these classes, write these exams, and only just for one slither of mature knowledge. You are like a biologist. Maybe you focus on whatever it may be. But here we're saying, if you're exploring yourself, then the patience to uncover all that is you and all that you're connected to, it should be default. We should come to that I'm not racing against everyone else, but I must, step by step, genuinely explore myself, and the reward is fantastic. You're able to connect to a broader reality, even with everyone else. You can kind of understand them where they're at. You can sympathize, empathize. It's tasty. So it's that part of the podcast. We're saying the cake is really sweet, but it will be up to you.
oh, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that, brother. I love that. It's just such a great messaging. I mean, it should be evidence for the audience that there are so many different ways up the mountain. There's a million ways, and we're sharing with the audience today incredible insight on two mastered sort of paths that you can gravitate to. This may be your path, that may be your path, something else may be your path, but it's what does it mean to you? I mean, we have the Tao Te Ching, which is our scripture, and there's 81 verses within the Tao Te Ching. I just transcribed the 2024 version with my teacher Lao Tzu. About a month or two ago, I had deep consult with him, wrote it all down, transmuted, transcribed it in English, Pinyin, Mandarin, and it's a magical register, what we call the magical register. So it's only 81 verses. Someone would look at it and go, oh, a nice little coffee table book. I'll have a coffee and I'll read it. It'll take me about 30 minutes. But it's actually a living scripture. It's your magical register. Every time you read one verse is an incantation. Each incantation has 81 levels of consciousness you can experience with a frequency, a color, and a shape that goes with that experience. And so when you read it, it will raise off the page, swirl around you, and drop into your heart. You will have a DMT experience because it's a mirroring of that divinity. For a Taoist, you will become whole. When you read that, you become whole. You're like, I'm home. I don't need anything. I'm in lack of nothing. I am now home. I am now present. And it's really visceral. It's a visceral, kinesthetic, somatic experience, as it should be. And this returns to your knowing, right?
Yes, yes. And what's great about this information age, as you're sharing now, brother, that now we can access these esoteric knowledge systems that come into the English language, because most of it may be locked into the mystical East or wherever it's traced to on Earth planet. But now access is available. What is needed is to actually engage with it, engage with these transcendental wisdoms. I want to, at this point, would say, if you're looking and you're thinking how to research Krishna consciousness, a plug would be if you find the Bhagavad Gita as is. So that would be like entry level. There is discussed 5 main topics. What is the supreme being or the absolute truth? What is the living being, you and I, soul? What is karma, the result of our activities? What is time, the controlling aspect of the reality we're in? And also material nature. Yes, what is the energy of this world, and so how does it influence us? So yeah, that would be a text you can look for. Pick up these books, and I'm sure my brother will plug. I want to find this transcription that you've made of this 81 texts, and
I'll send you a copy.
Okay, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's an experience. So this has been an incredible conversation, my friend. I really been welcoming it, and it's warmed my heart. It really has. I feel very much at home. I feel very much I'm at home with family. I'm very much whole when I speak to you. And I want to put more. So I'm going to get my students, disciples, 126 as subscribers to this channel. I want you to go out and check out everything that Savya has to offer. And you, my friend, have social media. I'm going to put that under here. And how to get hold of you. I want to be really stressed how important it is to find incredible teachers like yourself. And do you offer retreats? Do you offer guidance one-on-one digitally? There's places that we can come to find you. What are some of the things that you're offering right now?
Yes, my main work is sort of as an itinerant teacher. I just like returned from a tour of Germany and Switzerland. Online. So on YouTube, Instagram, I also put content on TikTok as Savya The Monk. So it's the same on Gmail. You can reach me. So different individuals get in touch with me, like that email or on those social media platforms. I love to interact with anyone who's interested in something that we are sharing online, because I feel that is the service that we can render, is to be available to each other, to share whatever it is that may make our lives just a little more brighter, a little more connected, a little more happier, loving. Otherwise, just personal growth is great. I'm happy I get it, but I like to share my time, whatever little I have, between the travels. So people can contact me like that. And we do also host specific, you could say, courses or seminar online. And once we're in touch with an individual, then I can get to know what to plug them to. Yeah. And so I also want to say I appreciate this time that we've spent, and I look to some other time again where we dive into whatever else and then just hold space.
I would love that. I'm going to hold you to that. There's going to be a part 2 to our conversation. I can't wait. And I'm going to say in closing, what is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
I would say spirit is the very nature of consciousness, meaning consciousness is a symptom of the living principle. So we would say, in one sense, the soul is the actual living being. Sometimes it will be called the spirit soul. And the presence of spirit soul or life force is awareness or consciousness. So that consciousness, however, becomes qualified by what it is aware of. So when there's conditioning, then we say someone is materialistic, means they are overly influenced by desire for the impermanent, transient things. And then we say one is more spiritually conscious, means they are now more aware and excited about the spiritual or the transcendent reality. So in that sense, spiritual consciousness is our default. We have to get back to being spiritually conscious. And currently we are naturally so money conscious, friends, TV, politics, so many things we're conscious of, which is not making us always feel in tune. So I would say something like that.
That's beautiful, brother. It's beautiful. I've done hundreds of these podcasts. I've never had the same answer, as I shouldn't, because we are all another expression of that divinity, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Well, I want to thank you, brother, for coming on this podcast today. I'm very grateful for you.
Same.
And I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. And then I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.